Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome to Fair Face Fail Productions. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about our lovely little Rawrr Mantis and Talaria here. I'd like to do a little comparison as we ride through some single track here in Colorado. And yeah, these are kind of they're not two different bikes, but they also kind of are. I think the goals of each bike might be a little bit different, and we'll talk about that. First, I want to say that we are a dealer in Monument, Colorado, A&M Moto Toys. So we both rent these. We sell both Talaria and the Rawrs. So we work with these bikes quite a bit. We ride them. We have fun with them. And I just wanted to put that out there because, we have spent a lot of time both working on these as well as building better models, I guess, with upgrades and working with the companies directly. Mostly Rawrr on that side, though. First, let's talk about the Talaria. So, Meeker Extreme is up there on the Talaria. You'll see him kind of throughout the video. So our Talaria, full disclosure, we'll say, is that this is an MX3 that has been heavily modified. It has Warp 9 wheels, 2118 setup. It has very beefy tires on it. Standard dirt bike tires. Manitou Dorado front forks. Of course, the whole entire stem and front linkage has all been changed up. None of that stock anymore. We have Warp 9 handlebars, handguards on the bike, bar risers. We have a back 4000 controller turned all the way up to 14.5 kilowatts. We have a JW 60 volt 53 amp hour battery. The whole bike. We also have a rear suspension. Oh, for the life of me, cannot remember the name of the company. I'll have to tag them in this after the fact. But anyways, so the bike is fully modified. So this would be more than we would get with a MX4 by all means. Way more power, bigger sprocket in the back, all that fun stuff. And the bike is not in its stock form. We have some videos on my channel and on Meeker Extreme's channel of us riding the Talaria stock out in Penrose, Colorado. So go check those out. So we've done quite a bit of riding in both scenarios of the Talaria. We have a lot of experience with it. We also rent this one. This is our rental model. The Talaria, to me, is an exercise in improving the original design of the Sur-Ron Light BX and having massive amounts of compromise all over. Of course, as you may know already, or maybe you don't know, these electric dirt bikes at this size are basically a compromise between a mountain bike and an electric drivetrain, and so it's a weird mix of stuff. So the stock Talaria, it had a mountain bike handlebar setup on the stem, which was awful. The bike's far too heavy for that kind of stuff. When you're going down heavy rocky stuff or trail stuff, it gets knocked over, it gets twisted easily. It's the number one thing that you have to change on the Talaria is going to the actual hard mounts. Warp 9's got some cool setup for that. That's pretty much what we run as well. Basically a better stem, basically better handlebar mounts to the triple clamps. That's required for any sort of real trail use. Kind of a bummer because those are actually pretty expensive upgrades just from the get-go. It's at least a few $100, $200-300 probably, and that's a big negative to me, especially as a trail rider. Now, if you're riding it on the street and if you're just messing around like you're probably not supposed to, I guess it really doesn't matter. I don't know. That's not a win for me. Our MX3, of course, came with the stock D&M forks. We blew through those forks pretty much the first or second ride. They were pretty toast. They were awful. Now they offer the Talaria factory forks, which I've gotten to try out through a couple of these, and they feel much better, but I don't know how robust they would be with the type of riding that we do. And that's why we went with the Manitou Dorados over going to the Talaria factory forks. It's an expensive upgrade, though, at least like $1,000. So, the Talaria is kind of a mix of a lot of compromise. I feel when we ride it that there's still quite a bit of movement in the frame as we ride. I don't care a lot about the creaks and rattles and whatever that a lot of the others complain about. The only big one to me to note on the Talaria is the battery rattle, whether it's the stock or aftermarket batteries. You got to have either some foam or we have a little pump up, blow up, I don't even know what it's called, thing to keep the battery from rattling around in there. So those are just a lot of things that the quality control and the engineering, you can just tell there was a lot of things that were missed or not cared about in the manufacturing of the Talaria. Even on the new MX4s, they still have the battery rattle. They upgraded some other things with the motor and controller stuff, but is it a bad bike? No, it's really not. It was very enjoyable, and I think for, what, $4,500 is the OEM price for them. It's a decent starting place, but I think the Talaria, in my opinion, requires too many from the get-go upgrades to really truthfully make it rideable. The other big one that I can think off the top of my head right now is the stock tires. They're mountain bike tires. They were awful. They wore out very quickly. They just were not going to last on our terrain, so then you're looking at swapping over to at least another good 19-inch tire pretty much right away. So when you look at that for $4,500 versus like the Rawrr starting at $5,000, the Rawrr actually starts to make a lot of sense when we really get into it. Okay, so the Rawrr Mantis. So new kid on the block. I'm not even going to bring up the Sur-Ron in this video necessarily because we don't have one right now anymore. But so the Rawrr Mantis has kind of some different goals, I believe. The engineering, so the CEO of the company says, as well as we've talked to them a lot over the time, was designed and engineered by a Chinese motocross guy in collaboration, I think, with the US-based counterpart. I don't know all of this for sure. In fact, we'd probably like to reach out and maybe do a video with them at some point about this. But nonetheless, the entire chassis and frame is a little bit longer, it's a little bit heavier, and boy, a lot more rigid. The angles of attack for both the front and rear suspension seems to be a lot more forgiving for hitting very steep, hard objects. Yeah, there was a lot of things. So the KKE suspension setup that they have on these as well is very good. I think it's sprung very well. Some people have complained that it's on the softer side. I think we've got it tuned to where I like it, because when we're on harder, bouncier stuff, I definitely want it to be soft to basically stay stable, and it does. I mean, we were hopping over logs and trees and stuff this whole time, so very impressed with the engineering and thought behind most of the things that are done on the Rawrr Mantis. Even the motor location seems to make more sense to me. It's less vulnerable. I don't think you even really need to put an aftermarket skid plate on the Mantis. So there's a lot of cool things that come stock, including bar risers. They include them with the bike in the box and the kit, so you can make the bars as tall or as short as you want. The bars are at a more of a bend that makes sense to dirt bikers. They're already mounted to the triple clamps. There's no weirdness there. So there's a lot of good things that they start out with. They don't have to spend money on, and tires is included in that as well. The stock tires that come on the Rawrr Mantis are far more capable, far better than what comes on the Talarias. So that's a good job there. That's probably just a huge accident when it comes to the company. They probably still picked a cheap tire, OEM tire, but it's lasted, and they're really good. And I actually plan to stock them as a 19-inch option. They're pretty good tires. Now, power-wise, when it comes to both of these bikes out here, the Talaria is the obvious winner because, it's 14.5 kilowatts. It has tons more power. It's got a bigger battery. Now, if you look at the stock figures, right now, because this is probably going to be out of date in the next few days, the power output of the Talaria is 8 kilowatts max, and I think there's a lot of limitations to that. And then the Rawrr Mantis is 7,500 watts with the 60-volt battery. The 72-volt battery is going to be a lot more than that. It's going to be more than the Talaria as well. So that is very cool. I think the moot point of power, I don't think it matters, even if it has more. Both these bikes are very capable out here, and both were a lot of fun. What really, I think, made the difference between the two bikes out on this particular ride was the 21-inch front wheel on the Talaria just makes getting over logs and stuff a little bit easier. Let's be real, it's going to be a lot bit easier with that. That front wheel makes a big difference. So, but when it comes to the electric drivetrains and the chassis, both were pretty capable. I like the longer stance of the Mantis. Seems to be a lot more planted down long stretches of downhill. I've always felt on the Talaria that I'm going to tip frontward off of it. And next we'll kind of talk about the technology supporting both of them. And this is very basic, kind of high level. The Talaria, you're stuck on a 60-volt system. If you want to go to 72 volts or output a little bit more power, you're going to have to go to a different controller. Now, there's a lot of controller options for the Talaria right now. There, as far as I know, are none for the Mantis, so that could be a win in some ways. But where the Mantis has a big advantage, in my opinion, is that it can take a 72-volt battery from the get-go. They're going to have new 72-volt batteries. We can throw it into our bike. It's going to have set up and ready to go with the 72-volt battery. More power, more capacity on that battery as well. So that'll be really cool, and there's more power output. So I think the majority of users out there are not going to need to go to a different controller and play with all that stuff. Because we're being honest, playing with the back controllers, that sucks. That's not fun. You want to have a tuner do it, and then you got to pay money for that stuff. And if they don't do it right, it's back and forth. So, I mean, ask me how we know. I've learned a lot about the back stuff and realizing that I would rather the support from a company like either KO or EBMX, which we're both dealers for. Yeah, I hate messing with all that. I want a bike to be pretty set to go from the out of the box. But if you want to have options, all right, the Talaria might swing in favor there. Another advantage to the Rawrr is going to be the tunability from an app. So that hasn't come out yet. I've already seen, let's just say, some prototype versions thereof, but they're going to have an app that connects to the bike that allows you to adjust the throttle control, torque, regen settings, all that stuff. Now, it's going to be more locked down than playing with, like, let's just say, kilowatt on a back controller, but allowing the users to play with it, to me, it's kind of like, dare I say, Future Motion's One Wheels, where they've got an app to play around with some of the settings. That's probably a scary comparison right now. But anyways, that's going to be pretty cool. We'll see how it works. We really want more regen for ourselves with that bike. The Talaria does have the advantage in the fact that it's got adjustable regen from the factory. Right now, the Rawrr doesn't. So there's kind of back and forth a little bit. The Rawrr is evolving very quickly, very fast. Very excited. I really can't tell you enough how excited we are to finally see them coming into their own, doing more reviews on them, and really kind of seeing that they're putting more of their money where their mouth is as far as support for the bike, getting parts out to us. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. And that drives me to my next point, which is customer support. Here in the United States, I think we're pretty much you're at the warranties at the limitation of whoever you bought your Talaria from. So that could be amped, or it could be a small shop. At the end of the day, being a shop, I'm not even totally sure who we go to for warranty claims and how well that process is going to work out. I haven't had to do it yet, but Lunicycle is technically the main importer for Talaria. I'm not a big fan of that company, I'll be honest. So I would probably try to work with Talaria in China directly, which sounds like it would be a nightmare. And yeah, that would be, I don't know, not my favorite thing to do. Whereas the Rawrr Mantis, we already had one customer that had bought a bike. About 40 miles into it, there ended up being a major failure of some sort with the motor. I haven't had a chance to tear it down. You guys will see a video on that. But the motor is, I think the Hall effect sensor came loose is what I'm guessing, and the motor no longer could figure out where it was in its travel. The controller couldn't figure out where to send power, so it was just not running right. Now, Rawrr Mantis, Rawrr, the company, sent us a brand new motor pretty much in like 2 days. Came real quick. We disassembled it, put it in there. Was a pretty quick process, and boom, there you go. It was really quite easy. No complaints, no qualms. We had some bad wheels coming on another bike. They sent us new wheels. Having a company in the United States to send us parts and to have parts on hand is so valuable to especially small shops like ours. That's something that I feel like we really just don't get with the other brands. And yeah, okay. I mean, there's different things. There's positives and negatives to every company. I talk up Rawrr a little bit. Are they going to always be the best bike for every individual? No, but we think that they're going to have more products and they're going to be able to satisfy the majority of people's needs in a better way that has been kind of missing in the United States for these electric dirt bikes. Last, let's talk about aftermarket support. Yeah, this is a hard ding on Rawrr right now. Rawr's brand new, so maybe we can give them a little bit of leeway for this. I feel that they're early on prototyping. They could have sent more bikes out to have accessories ready to go. I don't know. Nonetheless, the Talaria has a huge aftermarket following, much like the Suron does. We already talked about it a little bit, but there's controllers, wheels, handlebars, foot pegs, supports, linkages. Goodness gracious, we're a Grit Shift dealer and some of the other companies as well. And yeah, that it's kind of almost endless, right? So that's cool. And I think that is all coming for, I mean, and it is coming for Rawrr. Warp 9 has already got a page ready to go for the Rawrr Mantis. They're going to have wheels. I'm hoping to be some of the first people to get a 21 on a Mantis. And yeah, we want to get it a good aftermarket feel. There's no aftermarket controllers yet, which I think is going to be a necessary item at some point or another for those that want to compete with the 15, 20 kilowatt hours. And then companies like KO and EBMX will probably look at making motors for it as well. I don't know what the maximum abilities of this motor is from the get-go. We'll probably play with that soon. But yeah, so the aftermarket really goes to Talaria right now. There are some things. We just had a customer in today who was asking about, hey, what can I get? And I'm like, well, there's not a whole lot right at this very moment, but we're going to see more and more. Now, aftermarket batteries is my biggest thing that I'm looking out for. Lots of Talaria options right now, but there are both 72-volt batteries in development with Rawrr directly, and then there's aftermarket options already in development that we're going to see probably a larger 60-volt version and a larger 72-volt. I imagine the 72-volt is probably just going to be the better dealio. I don't know. But yeah, this has gone a little bit longer, but here's some thoughts between both the Talaria and the Rawrr Mantis, and hopefully this helps you choose between them, because I think they're both really capable bikes, and it depends on what you really plan to do. The Mantis is a better trail bike. If you're just cruising around and you're doing easier stuff, the Talaria is good if you want to save $500, but I think you lose out on some value that you get with the Mantis. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you coming to my channel, and come and check out A&M Moto Toys. Ferret Face, out.